Welcome to Canada Files. I'm Valerie Pringle. My guest today is Yannick Nézet-Séguin, who is the music director of the Metropolitan Opera and only the third person to hold that position in the history of the Met. He is also music director of the Orchestre Metropolitain in his hometown of Montreal for life and the Philadelphia Orchestra. He has won 3 Grammys and coached Bradley Cooper for his movie Maestro. His career has been a stunning rise since he decided to become a conductor at the age of 10. I spoke with him at the Met. Maestro, hello.
Hello.
You've been music director here at the Met since 2018. Does it feel like your house now?
It does, in many ways, even though I should say in the same breath that it's such a huge organization.
Well, it's the biggest arts organization in the world.
Exactly. And, I feel more like at the moment, I'm the real custodian of this house. It's not mine, but it's me. I have the responsibility to make it into those times, into the future. And it's beautiful to be in classical music because usually these institutions are so old and storied and famous, and we're reminded, not only the institutions, but the pieces we do, that we're reminded every day that we're just passing these masterpieces through time. And it's very humbling, but I do feel that, yes, at the moment, it's my house.
But it was terrifying at first, was it not? I mean, understandably.
So, the part, yes, I can't say it was not terrifying, but there was this little voice in me that knew from many years before that this might happen in my career.
Well, speaking of, meteoric rises, I mean, you're 50 now,
Yeah.
But it's been like that in your career. Do you still feel like the boy wonder, the prodigy?
Oh, well, I never felt like a prodigy.
You were.
I don't know, because prodigies for me are really insanely gifted kids that, they're 6 years old and they play Rachmaninoff concertos. For me, it's something, and I think I'm a hard worker, and I know I knew what I wanted to do at a very young age.
Well, you dreamed this life.
Yes, and so I feel like a very lucky boy, that's for sure. And I want to paraphrase my dear colleague Simon Rattle, who said once, I wish to stay a young conductor all my life. So that's what I want too, because a young conductor meaning being new, not being jaded, being always curious to meet new people, to meet new scores, to do better every day, whether it's Tosca or Bohème or Strauss or Fire Shut Up in My Bones. But I don't feel old, that's for sure. I feel like I've barely scratched the surface of what I want to be as an artist. And I think it's not probably not only me, or not even only conductors. I think musicians in general, we're very lucky because it's built in our profession to every day go back to practice, to study, and try to be a better version of ourselves. And this means that at 50, I'm sure I'm better, I hope I'm better than at 20, but I hope that I'm also not as good as how I'm gonna be at 70 or 80 or 90, because we never retire also. So I'm at the middle of my career now.
What do you think makes a great conductor?
I used to say communication. I mean, communication is very important. That's basically what we do. As a conductor, we communicate through our gestures, through the stick, the baton, through the shoulders, but also through the eyes, through every part of the body, is an expression at the service of the music, so that the musicians of the orchestra, singing, everyone knows and can get inspired by the message we want to give. But more and more, I would say that the primary quality of us as communicators, is authenticity. Because what's the best quality of a conductor? You ask a musician randomly, say, well, we want the conductor to be clear. Of course you want, then we're going to say inspiring and funny and knowledgeable and everything, but clear. Because if you're not clear, nobody knows what to do. But the key to be clear is to be authentic. If you are doing really what you believe in with the pieces and that you're not afraid of showing it to the musicians around you, that's authenticity and that's clarity. And that takes a lifetime, I think, to really develop. But that's what I'm teaching my young fellow conductors more and more, being authentic.
From your childhood, music was everything. Your mom says you were uncommon, and you even knew at 10 you wanted to conduct. How is that possible?
Well, I was blessed to be raised in a family where a lot of interests were there. You know, the presence of a piano in the house, my sisters learning piano, my parents playing piano after dinner, a little bit, you know, not much. You know, they were not, you know, trained to a real professional degree, but still music was part of having a good time and part of life. And I guess it's because newspapers in Montreal and television and media in general, and that's why I mention it, because it's so important. It's the responsibility I feel of the media to keep showing not only what people know what it's about, but showing when it's a little bit more mysterious, like a conductor and an orchestra. Well, the media at that time were covering a lot the Montreal Symphony because they were going on tour to Europe and they were making recordings. So in the papers, what I would see first was OSM, Orchestre Symphonique. So it just caught my attention. And I asked my parents, I want to see what this is about. And yeah, once I saw it for the first time, the rest is history.
You said, that's my destiny.
Yes.
Give me a baton.
I remember that
I've got a bow tie and a baton, and watch me go.
I was learning the pieces, which was basically putting a recording, putting a record actually on and on and on and on several times, making a choreography on it, and basically thinking that, okay, I'm learning the piece, and then going to my parents said, okay, I know this Mozart symphony now.
I can conduct it.
Yeah.
But I mean, to be fair, you were also trained as a classical pianist.
Yes.
So you really knew your music, even though that really never felt like it was going to be your destiny.
So in order, what happened is that I started to learn piano at age 5, and I liked it, I enjoyed it without feeling that this was my destiny at all. And it's when I started singing in a choir and seeing an orchestra, then everything made sense together, because for me, music is about sharing in a group. I admire very much the great pianists of our time and the great violinists, but for me, there was something too lonely about it. I wanted to be with a group. I wanted to share music with 100 people, whether it's singing or playing an instrument. And I still don't know exactly why I saw myself really on the podium. You know, what was this instinct that this was my place? But I remember liking the fact that I could be with people and still being a leader, which I guess I showed signs of being a leader, you know, even in my little elementary class room. But I loved school too. I loved so many things. And that's why I also wanted to become an architect at some point. I wanted to become a journalist, wanted to become an economist, but never seriously enough to detract me from becoming a conductor.
You know, I'm wondering, like, what you hear in your head before your arms move. I mean, as you say, the score and everyone's part, it's so complex, and you hear it before you conduct it.
Of course, it's like anything in life. It's a skill to be able first to read music and be able to imagine when it's one line. Then when it's piano, it's 2 lines, and it's already more complex because you have chords. Then when it's an orchestra, it's all the instruments superposed on a page, and you have to learn it's not unlike speed reading. You know, when you read a script or a book, and your eye and your brain are able, without you reading every word, to go to the most important part. It's not unlike that as a skill, but that's the beginning, that skill, of course. Afterwards, it's to be an artist about it. So what does that score say to me? What is the emotion? And therefore know how to convey that to the orchestra with a gesture. And that's why we need to hear it before. Because, you know, just what we call the upbeat, which is just the beat before it starts, it has to be charged with whatever emotion you want to convey. If it's intimate, if it's forceful, if it's angry, if it's grand, it's a little bit like theater in a way, but not theater about thinking we never think about how it looks. We have to think only about how we feel and trust that this is how it's gonna be perceived.
But you say you've got to have a cold head and a warm heart. How does,
because
how does that work?
Well, because if we get too wrapped up in our music, then we're not safe anymore, we're not clear anymore. And it has happened to me, like we all do this, especially in my youth, you know. You get so enthusiastic and then it becomes like I don't drive cars, I don't have a driver's license, never learned. I'm not against it, it just never happened. But I drive orchestras. And so a lot of my metaphors are what I imagine driving is. And you know, when you drive, you still need to always be focused. But the warm heart, this is what makes music what it is. It cannot be just something analytical, and that's dangerous for a conductor because we have so many things to think about, especially in an opera, because you have a long pit with all the musicians and a big distance from each other. They can't hear each other. We have to guide also who's on the stage, sometimes backstage, off stage, people behind. There's a lot of traffic to do, and yet it has to be all done with the right emotion in the music. And there's no shortcut. I mean, I can't stress enough how it takes time to study, not only in life, but any new score or even any score, even if it's not new to me, I have to study so many hours in order to arrive at the right level of freedom to express what I want to express.
Well, it's funny, the story of you conducting. I think it was maybe the first time you did that when you were 21. It was like a 12-minute piece.
Yes.
And I mean, you almost fainted at the end. You were so exhausted from waving your arms around. And
I had no back left. Like, my back did not exist anymore.
I have to lie down now.
Thank goodness it has never happened again. But yeah, it is a very, very, very physical profession. It's very intellectual, obviously, but also very physical. Operas or symphonies. I mean, sometimes there's Bruckner symphonies. I love Bruckner. 90 minutes it lasts. Or even Mahler Symphony, just did a few months ago with the Philadelphia Orchestra. Mahler Third Symphony, one of my favorite symphonies. An hour 45, nonstop. A Wagner opera, 5 hours. A few intermissions, but sometimes one act is more than 90 minutes. You have to constantly, relentlessly be involved with your body. So it's not only the arms, it's the whole body. So of course, we need to be ready physically for that. Also having the right amount of tension, but not being too tense like anything else in life, or like a sports person of a higher caliber.
Yeah, you're an elite athlete.
Yeah, in a way, we have to consider ourselves this way in terms of what we eat, how we sleep, not drink too much and all of that,
Training.
It's a commitment.
Is it ever perfect?
Thank God, no.
You've never thought, that was just what I heard.
So, for me, the most wonderful thing about being an artist is that we really, really, really strive for perfection. And thank goodness it never exists. Because if it did, we would stop. Why continue? To maybe one more time, it would be so frustrating. And it is frustrating, don't get me wrong. And I think as a young musician, and I could say maybe many other professions in life, you have to figure out a way of being, yes, that was good. I'm happy with what I did. And yes, I mean, almost every concert I give, I'm happy with what happened. Many things, a million things that happened that night were great. I'm happy. And yet there's a million things I would do different. And I think it's so important to value this. Otherwise, it's miserable. You know, every night we're like, it wasn't perfect. It was horrible. How can you live a life like that? But if you're also very content and say, that was good enough, that was great, then why continue? So this balance, everybody has to find it in them. And thank goodness I was guided to find that balance in my teenage years, I would say, thanks to great teachers I had and my parents and everyone around me. But thank goodness perfection doesn't exist.
You're very grounded by your parents and your husband. You travel with them. I mean, I think it'd be easy to get a swelled head. Yes, Maestro, we love you. But I mean, it's interesting how close you are still to your parents. And obviously, your relationship with your husband, who's also a musician, is really solid, calm.
I don't think I could have done half of what I've done, or any, if it wasn't for them, really. So first, my parents, because to this day, their love of music and of me, being encouraging without pushing too much, that has helped me so much, and I'm so lucky. And my husband, well, you know, it's been 30 years. We've just developed together. I mean, it's like a symbiotic thing. Me conducting is like him conducting in a way. And he's traveling with me, but rarely comes to rehearsals. He just comes to concerts and will say a few things to me, which I don't mean to repeat the same word over and over again, but it would in general be about me making sure I'm authentic with what I want to do, and I'm not caving in to someone saying something or an idea that I think is good. We say, well, is it really, Yannick, what you want? Is it? And he's a phenomenal musician himself, and actually a really good conductor himself. So he does that occasionally to conduct. So
Now, how did Bradley Cooper find you to teach him how to conduct for the movie Maestro?
Well, some of it has to do with the Met. So Bradley did such an extensive research. And I remember in this building, our first conversation, I mean, already the spark and the chemistry was there. So the rest afterwards was history. I invited him in Philadelphia, and we decided that we would do this together, you know.
So that was a great experience.
Already one of the greatest experiences of my life. You know, I've always been fascinated by movies, and to be really honest, if there's one thing that I could see, no, I can't see myself doing it, but a dream, something that I wish I could do, but I don't think I will do one day, but you know, that kind of dream is to direct a movie. And so for me to be involved in all the process of writing, of preparing, of filming, of editing at all times, and all of this in Maestro was at the service of a conductor who's been the most influential, I think, for all of the people of my generation and beyond, and someone who's been really influential, even though I never met him, influential on me. For such a beautiful movie that I'm very proud to have been a part of. So anything I can do to spread the message of classical music being something for everyone and something that can move you, I'm in.
Interesting for you too, spending all that time with Leonard Bernstein and that movie. It must have been interesting thinking of, his closeted life and how different it was for him in his time. And for you now.
It's in some ways amazing to see that, yes, we've come maybe a certain way. I wouldn't say a long way. We've come some way from, not being able in the 60s, 70s to live our truth as a gay or bisexual, or, in my case, gay, but in the case of Leonard Bernstein, bisexual, in positions of authority and a certain classical music field that nevertheless still rings for many people as traditional and conservative. For me, I was blessed to be raised in a loving family with, a city, Montreal, then Philadelphia, then Rotterdam in between, and New York, where being gay is not an issue. And now I'm using this platform of being at the helm of so many great ensembles to just show, especially for the young musicians, yes, it's possible to live your truth and be at the top. But I wish that in 2024, 2025, I wish that this would not even be something, right? So I think it's slow. And, we're talking Canada, we're talking parts of the US, but even home, it's not a given. There's still conversion therapies all over the place, and there's still threats on rights that were given to us not so long ago. So music, well, if I can do my part through music and through being who I am.
And through nail polish.
Yeah, exactly.
Jewelry.
Exactly. Well, just to connect with people. And that can be with this or for this community, but it could be also communities who are just traditionally feeling excluded if they don't obey all the supposed codes. Music is for everyone. It's universal. It's even for animals. It's for everyone.
Cats.
We all relate. Yes. Oh, my cats react to music so much and so well.
What's left to dream?
The Moon Philharmonic Orchestra. The dream is really to remain as joyful, sharing music as I am now and as I've ever been. I want this to continue, but I also want the world of classical music, concert music, to open up even more. And my dream is that more and more people are gonna understand that they can get so much out of this art form. And that's really my dream. I've never been someone, and I know it's gonna sound fake, but it's really how I feel. I never planned my career about wanting to reach an echelon or something.
Or a legacy, or...
It's always been about making the most of the moment. Every note, one person who inspires me a lot is Rafael Nadal, and so sad that he just retired. But one thing that we always said about Nadal is that every shot was important. So for me, every note is important. Every note deserves to be loved, and therefore every concert is important, whether it's in the basement of a church in Montreal that I do with Orchestre Metropolitan, or whether I take OM to Carnegie Hall, or whether I go to the Vienna Philharmonic. Everything is important, and I believe that then the rest just comes because you give your heart and soul to every concert.
Final question we ask is, what does being Canadian mean to you?
I think it means a lot, obviously, for me as a person. I mean, I would never, ever change my citizenship. For me, even though I, stay and travel all over the world, and I love many cities, and New York is exhilarating, but for me, home is Montreal, home is Canada. As Canadians, we are also, I think we learn to be respectful of everyone, regardless of where they are in this supposed hierarchy, which is a word that's not so often used in our country. And I realized, and I took, I was conscious of this, and I took this really at heart to bring this Canadian way of leading an orchestra and of making music everywhere I went. And well, it seems to have worked.
I'll say. Such a pleasure.
Great pleasure to talk to you, really.
Wow.
Thank you.
Merci, monsieur. We'll be back next week with another episode of Canada Files.
The preceding program was made possible through the generous support of Richard Wernham and Julia West, as well as the following donors: Ted and Alice Kernahan, the Linwood Family Foundation, Jim and Sandy Treliving, the Browning Watt Foundation, Richard Pilasoff, Michael McCain and family, Tony and Sherry Fell, Mary Davey, Clinch House Foundation, Bryce and Nikki Douglas, the 63 Foundation, David and Cheryl Carr, the Sheila and David Wilson Foundation, and by the Central Canadian Public Television Association.